More. Did you know that God may already be speaking to you through your mind, but the real question is, are you listening, or are you too busy ignoring Him? More. Think for a moment about the countless times you've had a sudden idea, a deep feeling, more, or an unexplainable sense of direction that seemed to come from nowhere. How often did you push it aside, thinking it was just your imagination? And yet, more, deep down, you knew there was something sacred about that moment. That was not just random thought, it was a seed planted by the divine, more, waiting for you to recognize it. The truth is, your mind is more than a collection of thoughts and memories. More, it is a vessel that can carry whispers from heaven. God does not always shout to get your attention. Sometimes He speaks in stillness, more, in those subtle nudges that guide you to make a decision, call someone at the right time, or choose a path you would never have taken on your own. More, these are not coincidences. They are divine communications woven into the fabric of your everyday life. But when you dismiss them, more, you risk silencing the very voice that is trying to lead you into breakthroughs and blessings. More, there is a sacred responsibility that comes with recognizing God's voice in your mind. It means that you must slow down and pay attention. Many times, we live in a world filled with noise, distractions, and endless chatter. Social pressures, doubts, more, and fears crowd our thoughts until the gentle whisper of God gets buried. But here's the secret. He is still speaking. He has never stopped. More, it is you who must choose to quiet the noise and listen with intent. The more you practice listening, the clearer His guidance becomes. More, like a familiar voice among a crowd, when you learn to discern His voice, your life transforms. More, you begin to notice patterns, those inner urgings that protect you from danger, encourage you to forgive, more, or inspire you to move forward when everything else says you can't. They may not always align with logic, but they carry peace. More, and that peace is your confirmation. More. Think about how powerful it is to walk through life with the confidence that God Himself is directing your steps through the very thoughts that pass through your mind. More, but many people ignore these signals. They dismiss them as insignificant. They say, "It's just me thinking." Yet, by ignoring them, more, they shut themselves off from divine opportunity. Imagine how many doors you could have walked through if you had trusted that inner voice. More. Imagine the relationships you could have built, the mistakes you could have avoided, the blessings you could have received. If only you had listened. More, to ignore the voice of God in your mind is to ignore a compass designed to keep you on course. Listening requires humility and obedience. More, when you choose to act on those promptings, you align yourself with divine timing. It may be uncomfortable, it may not make sense to those around you. More, but obedience is not about what others see. It is about trusting the unseen hand that is guiding you. The more you obey, more, the louder and clearer the voice becomes. And soon, what once seemed like a faint whisper turns into a steady stream of guidance that gives you direction, more, purpose, and strength. Today, I challenge you to stop ignoring Him. Train your mind to recognize the difference between distraction and divine instruction. Give space for silence in your day, because silence is often where God speaks the loudest. When you embrace this truth, more, you will no longer walk blindly through life. Instead, you will walk with assurance, knowing that heaven is in constant dialogue with you. More, God is not distant. He is near, closer than your very thoughts. And the moment you begin to honor His voice in your mind, more you will see your path light up with clarity, peace, and divine favor. More, God's voice is not always thunderous. It often comes as a gentle whisper in your thoughts. Many people believe that if the divine were to speak, more, it would come with lightning fire or overwhelming signs that leave no room for doubt. But the truth is, more, the most profound communications from God are often the quietest, the ones that slip into your mind when you least expect them. More. Think about those moments when you are still, perhaps lying awake in the silence of the night. More, or when you are about to make a decision and suddenly a thought arises that feels different, deeper. More. and more significant than the ordinary noise of your mind. That is not simply random thinking, it is the language of heaven, subtle but powerful. More. The reason many people miss it is because they are looking for God in grand displays rather than in the sacred simplicity of everyday thought. When God chooses to speak to your mind, He does so in a way that honors your free will. He doesn't shout to control you or overwhelm you. Instead, He nudges you, guiding you gently, so that you have the choice to follow. These nudges may come as sudden clarity about a problem, a reminder to reach out to someone, or even an internal conviction that tells you to pause before taking a step in the wrong direction. Each of these whispers is filled with divine wisdom, and yet if you are not paying attention, you may brush them aside as mere coincidence or fleeting feelings. But if you slow down and consider them you will begin to realize that these whispers carry weight, purpose, and direction that go beyond your natural reasoning. The challenge for most of us is that our minds are often so crowded with noise, doubts, and distractions that the still, small voice of God is drowned out. We are surrounded by endless chatter from the world, social media, opinions of others, and the constant replaying of our fears and worries. In that noise, it becomes easy to dismiss the gentle whisper of divine guidance. But God's voice is not designed to compete with chaos. He speaks quietly, inviting us into peace, reflection, and trust. The moment you start recognizing this truth, you will realize that the voice of God has been with you all along, waiting for you to pay attention. Sometimes His whisper comes as a thought that challenges your comfort. It may encourage you to take a leap of faith, or to release something that is holding you back. At other times, it brings peace in the middle of uncertainty, like a soft reminder that you are not alone, and that you are being led even when you cannot see the full path. And then, there are moments when His whisper carries warnings, subtle checks in your spirit that prevent you from making choices that could lead to harm. If you look back, you may find that there were times you had such whispers but ignored them, only to later realize that they were God's way of protecting you. The beauty of God's gentle whisper is that it reflects His character. He is not trying to overpower you, but to walk with you. He speaks in a way that teaches you to listen, to discern, and to trust. By learning to recognize this voice, you deepen your relationship with Him. It no longer feels like you are walking through life on your own. Instead, you begin to notice that there is guidance available in every step if only you are willing to pause and listen. The more you honor these whispers, the clearer they become. It is like tuning into a frequency. Once you learn how to recognize the sound, you can pick it out even in the middle of the noise around you. So, when you wonder if God is speaking to you, don't wait for lightning in the sky or booming words in the air. Pay attention to the whispers in your mind, the thoughts that bring peace, clarity, or conviction. Honor them, because they may be the very way God is directing you. His voice does not need to be loud to be powerful. In fact, its quietness is what makes it so precious. It requires faith, trust, and attentiveness to hear it. And once you do, you will discover that God has been speaking to you all along, through the gentle, guiding whispers in your own thoughts. Your mind can be the sacred space where divine instructions and guidance are revealed. Too often, people underestimate the power of their own thoughts, believing that the mind is merely a tool for processing daily tasks, storing memories, or imagining possibilities. But the truth is far deeper. The mind is one of the most intimate spaces where God chooses to meet you. It is within the canvas of your thoughts that He paints direction, inspiration, and insight meant to guide your life toward greater fulfillment and purpose. This is why what you think and how you guard your mind is so important, because it is not just your private world, it is also a holy ground where heaven chooses to communicate. When you realize this truth, you begin to approach your thoughts differently. You stop dismissing sudden clarity as random. You stop ignoring those quiet impressions that come when you least expect them. Instead, you recognize that God uses your mind as a channel, more, planting ideas that carry His wisdom and vision. These divine instructions often feel different from ordinary thoughts. They carry a sense of weight, more, a peace, or even a conviction that lingers long after the moment passes. You may suddenly feel inspired to pursue a new path, to let go of something toxic, more, or to take action that aligns with a higher calling. And while logic may argue with you, more, something within you knows that this thought carries a divine origin. Your mind then becomes more than a personal possession, more, it becomes a sacred meeting place. Just as sacred spaces on earth are treated with reverence, your mind must also be protected and honored, more, because what fills it determines how clearly you can hear from God. If your mind is consumed with negativity, fear, or endless distraction, more, it becomes harder to distinguish divine whispers from the noise of the world. But when your mind is nurtured with peace, stillness, and openness, more, it becomes fertile ground where God's guidance can take root and flourish. More, imagine it as a garden. What you allow to grow in it will determine whether you recognize the voice of God or overlook it. More, there are times when divine guidance in the mind appears as sudden wisdom that you did not study or learn but simply knew. More, it comes in the form of insight that solves a problem or brings direction when you were uncertain. Other times, more, it shows up as creative ideas that seem far greater than what your own imagination could have produced. And often it comes as reminders of values, truth, more, and inner convictions that keep you aligned with what is right, even when it's not convenient. More, all of these are signs that your mind is being used as an instrument of communication from above. More, what makes this so extraordinary is that God does not need elaborate ceremonies to speak to you. More, He chooses the most personal and accessible way possible, through your own mind. It means that no matter where you are, more, whether standing in a crowd or sitting alone in silence, you have access to divine counsel. More, you don't need to climb mountains or wait for miraculous signs. The sacred dialogue can begin right where you are, in the quiet space of your thoughts. More, that is how close God is to you, closer than your own breath, nearer than any voice outside. However, more, this also places responsibility on you to pay attention. Many people treat their minds carelessly, allowing every kind of influence to take root. More, they ignore the value of discernment, leaving themselves unable to recognize when God is speaking. To truly experience the mind as a sacred space, more, you must guard it with intention. That means being mindful of what you allow in, whether through words, images, or environments. More, a mind filled with constant clutter will struggle to hear, but a mind cultivated in peace will recognize divine instructions with clarity. More, the next time a thought comes to you that brings light, peace, or direction beyond your natural reasoning, do not dismiss it. More, ask yourself if this could be divine instruction, a seed planted in your sacred space. More, begin to treat your mind not as a battlefield of random ideas, but as a sanctuary where the Creator Himself chooses to dwell. When you honor it in this way, more, you will find that guidance becomes clearer, wisdom becomes deeper, and your path unfolds with greater certainty. More, your mind is not just yours. It is holy ground where divine whispers reveal the way forward. More, ignoring those inner nudges and impressions can close doors to blessings meant for you. Every day, countless thoughts run through your mind. More, but not all of them are ordinary. Some carry a weight that cannot be explained, a quiet strength that tugs at your spirit and asks for your attention. More, these are not mere accidents of the brain. They are divine whispers placed in your heart and mind to guide you toward opportunities, protection, more, and purpose. The tragedy is that many people, out of business, doubt, or fear, push these impressions aside. More, they silence the very guidance that was meant to open doors and lead them into blessings they cannot see in the moment. More, think of how often you have felt urged to take a step, maybe to reach out to someone you had not spoken to in a long time, to make a change in your career. more to pause before making a hasty decision. At the time, those nudges may have felt inconvenient or unnecessary, so you ignored them. But later, more. You realized that if you had followed them, you would have avoided pain, embraced growth, or walked into something greater than what you had settled for. More. Every ignored impression is a missed chance to align with a plan that is bigger than your own understanding. More. God's voice does not always explain itself in the beginning, it asks for trust. And when you choose to ignore it, more, you close off the very blessing it was meant to deliver. Blessings are not always wrapped in obvious packages. More, sometimes they come disguised as difficult choices, uncomfortable steps, or quiet warnings. More, the impression to forgive someone you would rather stay angry with, the thought to give when you feel like keeping. More, the inner push to step out when fear says stay still. These are divine nudges designed to shift your life. But when ignored, more, the blessing attached to that act also slips away. You may not see it immediately, but in the bigger picture, more, you will notice the absence of what could have been. More, how many doors remain shut because you refuse to turn the handle God placed before you in your thoughts. The truth is, more, ignoring divine impressions is not just about missing blessings. It can also lead you into unnecessary struggles. When God whispers, "Don't go there, wait," or "choose differently," it is because He sees what you cannot. More. His perspective reaches beyond the moment into the unseen. If you silence that whisper and push ahead with your own will, more, you may find yourself facing consequences that were never meant for you. More. Many of the hardships people endure are not punishments but results of ignoring the gentle guidance that was there all along. More, you can save yourself from years of regret by simply paying attention to the inner tug that says, "This is not the way." When you honor those nudges, more, you align yourself with doors that swing open at the right time. The right opportunity shows up, the right person enters your life. More, the right path clears before you. It may not always make sense when you first obey, but later you see the wisdom behind it. More, a thought to prepare yourself may lead to a promotion. A nudge to step away from a toxic connection may open space for peace and joy. More, a conviction to wait patiently may position you to receive more than you imagine. More, the blessings tied to these impressions are not random. They are intentional gifts that unfold when you choose to listen. More, this is why you cannot afford to treat your inner guidance as optional. Every whisper is an invitation to something greater. More, to ignore it is to say no to blessings you may not even know you need. More, but to honor it is to walk with confidence that your steps are directed and your path is unfolding with purpose. More, the next time you feel that quiet impression, pause before brushing it aside. More, ask yourself if this could be divine instruction leading you to a door that only opens through obedience. Remember, more, blessings are not lost because they don't exist. They are lost because they are ignored. And when you learn to listen, more, you will discover that doors you thought were closed begin to open, one divine whisper at a time. More, discernment is the key, learning to recognize when it is God speaking and not mere noise. The mind is a busy place, filled with countless voices, memories, more worries, and dreams. Every day, thoughts flow through like waves, some influenced by your environment, some shaped by your past, more and others driven by fear or desire. In the midst of this constant activity, more, it can be difficult to tell which impressions carry divine truth and which are simply the echo of human noise. This is where discernment becomes essential. More. Without it, you may mistake your own emotions for God's leading, or worse, you may dismiss His voice as nothing more than imagination. More. Discernment is what allows you to filter through the clutter and identify that quiet, steady guidance that comes from above. One of the greatest challenges people face is confusing impulse with inspiration. Impulse is loud, urgent, and often driven by fear or desire. More, it pushes you to act quickly without reflection, promising satisfaction but leaving you empty. Divine impressions, on the other hand, more, carry a different weight. They may be quiet, but they come with peace even when they ask for courage. More, they bring clarity even when they call you to step into the unknown. Discernment is learning to recognize this difference, more to sense when a thought is simply born from restlessness, and when it is seeded by God to direct your path. Without discernment, more, you risk running after every fleeting idea, exhausting yourself in directions that were never meant for you. Discernment also requires humility. More, it is the willingness to admit that not every thought in your mind is divine, and not every impression is a call from God. More, sometimes your own desires can disguise themselves as guidance. You may want something so badly that you convince yourself God has spoken, when in reality, more, it was your own longing leading the way. This is why discernment is not just about listening but about testing. More, true divine direction will never bring confusion or pull you into contradiction with what is good, pure, and uplifting. It may challenge you, more, but it will not corrupt you. It may stretch you, but it will not destroy your peace. When you measure your thoughts against this truth, more, you begin to see which ones align with divine wisdom and which ones do not. Another mark of discernment is patience. God's voice is not always in a hurry, more even though the world constantly demands quick answers. Sometimes, the divine whisper will come with a sense of waiting, more a call to pause before moving forward. In a culture obsessed with speed, this can feel frustrating. More, but discernment teaches you that waiting is not weakness, it is wisdom. Acting too quickly on a voice that was not truly divine can close doors. More, but waiting on the right timing can open blessings beyond what you imagined. Discernment helps you see that delay is not denial, it is often preparation. More, it is also important to recognize that discernment grows with practice. The more you listen, the more you learn to distinguish the subtle tone of God's whisper from the loud distractions around you. More, just as a musician learns to identify notes with clarity, you learn to identify the divine voice with sensitivity. Over time, more, you develop a confidence that allows you to move without constant second-guessing. More, you know the difference between fear-driven noise and peace-filled guidance. You know when to pause, when to act, and when to let go. More. This confidence does not come overnight, but it comes to those who consistently pay attention. Discernment is not about perfection, more, it is about relationship. The closer you walk with God, the easier it becomes to recognize His voice. More. Just as you can pick out the voice of a loved one in a crowded room, you begin to recognize divine whispers in the crowded thoughts of your mind. More. This recognition brings peace, direction, and assurance. You are no longer tossed about by every thought that enters your mind, more, but anchored by the knowledge that you can hear and follow the one who is guiding you. When you cultivate discernment, more, you are no longer at the mercy of noise. You learn to filter the endless stream of thoughts and identify the ones that carry divine wisdom. More, you begin to trust the still, small voice that may not always make sense in the moment, but proves true in the outcome. And most importantly, more, you walk with confidence that you are not alone, that your steps are guided, and that your life is being shaped by a hand greater than your own. More, discernment is not just a skill, it is a safeguard, a compass, and a gift that ensures you will not mistake noise for truth. More, but will instead recognize the voice of God leading you forward. Obedience to these inner promptings unlocks peace, clarity, and direction in your life. Many people hear divine whispers within their thoughts but fail to act on them. They sense the nudge, feel the weight of a thought that seems greater than themselves, and yet they hesitate, dismiss it, or explain it away. The tragedy is that every divine impression is not just a passing moment, it is an invitation. It is God's way of extending His hand into your life, guiding you toward alignment with His purpose. When you ignore that invitation, you delay or even block the blessings tied to it. But when you obey, even when it feels uncomfortable or uncertain, doors open, confusion clears, and you find yourself walking with a peace that surpasses understanding. More, obedience is often misunderstood as a burden, as if responding to God's whispers takes away your freedom. In truth, obedience is not a chain but a key. More, it is the key that unlocks the treasures already waiting for you. Every act of obedience brings alignment. It aligns your steps with divine timing, more, your choices with higher wisdom, and your life with greater peace. It may not always make sense in the beginning, more, but the fruit of obedience is always clarity. When you take that step, when you follow that impression, more, you begin to see why it was given to you in the first place. More. Only in hindsight do you often realize that what seemed small at the time was actually a crucial part of your journey. More. Consider the difference between acting on an inner prompting and ignoring it. When you obey, even without full understanding, more, you create room for God to move in your life. You make space for blessings to unfold, relationships to be restored, and opportunities to manifest. More. But when you ignore it, you close the door on what could have been. Many people pray for direction, asking for peace and clarity, more. Yet when the answer comes as a whisper in their mind, they do nothing with it. Peace and clarity do not come from endless asking. They come from acting. More. Obedience transforms uncertainty into certainty, because it takes the seed of divine instruction and plants it into action, where it can grow into results. More. Obedience also brings a unique kind of peace. There is a deep rest that comes when you know you have done what was asked of you, more, even if you cannot see the full outcome yet. This peace is not dependent on circumstances, it flows from alignment. More. You no longer wrestle with endless what ifs because you know you followed the voice that matters most. More. Peace does not come from controlling every detail, it comes from trusting and obeying the divine guidance already given to you. More, and with that peace comes direction. Every act of obedience lights up the next step. It may not show you the entire journey, more, but it reveals the path in front of you, just enough for you to keep walking with confidence. Often, people wait for a grand revelation, more, a full map of their life before they are willing to move. But God rarely speaks that way. He gives you step-by-step instructions, more, small impressions that require trust. Obedience is what bridges the gap between what you know now and what you will understand later. More. Each step of obedience prepares you for the next. It is like walking a path where the light only shines as you move forward. More. If you stand still waiting for the entire road to be illuminated, you will remain in darkness. But if you take the step you've been given, more, the light expands and suddenly you see the next direction. Obedience may cost you comfort, pride, or even the approval of others, more. But what it gives you in return is far greater. It gives you peace that cannot be shaken, clarity that cannot be stolen, more, and direction that keeps you from wandering aimlessly. It is in obedience that you discover the freedom of truly living guided, more, rather than guessing your way through life. Every time you say yes to those divine promptings, more, you position yourself to receive the fullness of what was always meant for you. You stop fighting against the flow and instead move with it, more, allowing God's wisdom to lead you into places your own understanding could never reach. So, when the next whisper comes, whether it is to forgive, more, to give, to pause, or to move, do not hesitate, do not dismiss it as ordinary, recognize it for what it is, a divine key placed in your hands. More, turn that key through obedience and watch as peace floods your heart, clarity fills your mind, and direction unfolds before your feet. More, obedience is not the loss of control, it is the gaining of alignment. And in that alignment, you will find the life you were always meant to live. More, when you tune your heart and mind to listen, you step into alignment with God's purpose for you. Life becomes more than random events strung together. More, it begins to feel like a divinely orchestrated journey where each step carries meaning. Alignment is not about perfection, more, nor is it about having all the answers. It is about being sensitive enough to recognize that the one who created you is constantly guiding you, more, and that your role is to listen, respond, and trust. The tuning of your heart and mind is like adjusting an instrument. when it is out of tune. More, the sound is distorted and unpleasant, but when it is finely tuned, it produces harmony. In the same way, when your thoughts and desires are misaligned, more, life feels confusing and scattered. But when you tune yourself to divine guidance, everything begins to flow with clarity and peace. More, the process of tuning requires intention. It does not happen by accident. More, just as a musician cannot pick up an instrument and expect it to play perfectly without adjustment, more, you cannot expect to hear God's whispers clearly without preparing your inner life. This means setting aside moments of stillness, more, creating space to quiet the noise of the world, and allowing your spirit to be receptive. A heart cluttered with resentment, fear, more, or distraction will struggle to hear the divine, but a heart attuned through openness, humility, and trust becomes fertile ground for God's voice. More. When you give attention to this tuning, you become more aware of the subtle guidance that is always present, and you start to notice the patterns, nudges, more, and confirmations that once seemed invisible. Alignment with God's purpose also changes the way you see obstacles. More. Instead of viewing them as signs of failure, you begin to see them as redirections. A closed door no longer feels like rejection, but like divine protection. More. Steering you away from paths not meant for you. A delay no longer frustrates you but teaches you patience, reminding you that timing is part of purpose. More. When your heart and mind are tuned to listen, you begin to recognize that even the challenges carry lessons. More, and those lessons are preparing you for the blessings ahead. This shift in perspective brings peace. More, because you know you are not wandering blindly, you are being led. When you live out of alignment, confusion reigns. More, you may chase opportunities that drain you, pursue relationships that harm you, or make decisions that leave you restless. But when you step into alignment, more, there is a natural flow. You no longer feel the need to force outcomes or manipulate circumstances. Instead, more, you trust that what is meant for you will not pass you by, and what passes you by was never meant to stay. More, this trust frees you from the constant anxiety of trying to control everything. It allows you to move with confidence. More, knowing that your life is unfolding under divine orchestration. Tuning your heart and mind also impacts how you interact with others. When you are aligned, more, you radiate peace, and that peace influences those around you. People may not understand why you carry such calmness, more, but they are drawn to it because it reflects a life lived in harmony with something greater than yourself. Your words carry more weight, more. Your actions become more intentional, and your presence becomes a channel of encouragement and hope. More. This is the natural fruit of alignment. It doesn't just bless you, it blesses everyone connected to you. Alignment is about living with purpose. More, it is no longer about drifting aimlessly or merely surviving each day. It is about recognizing that every thought, decision, more, and action can move you closer to the life you were created to live. When you listen and follow those divine whispers, more, you step into a rhythm that is greater than chance. Your life begins to echo with meaning, more, and you find yourself in places you could never have reached on your own. Alignment with God's purpose is not always the easiest path, more, but it is always the most fulfilling. It brings peace when the world is chaotic, clarity when the future is uncertain, more, and direction when the road seems unclear. So tune your heart and mind, make space to listen. More, do not treat divine impressions as background noise, but as sacred guidance designed to lead you into purpose. The moment you choose to live in alignment, more, you discover that you are not lost, not forgotten, and not wandering. You are exactly where you are meant to be, more, walking step by step in harmony with God's perfect plan for your life. My friends, more, everything we have explored comes down to one simple but life-changing truth: God is speaking, more, and He often chooses your very own mind as the place to deliver His whispers. They may not come as thunder, they may not arrive with a crowd of signs, more, but they are present in the gentle nudges, the sudden clarity, the inner peace that refuses to let go. More, to ignore them is to miss doors that were meant to open. To dismiss them is to turn away from blessings already prepared for you. But to recognize, discern more, and obey them is to walk in peace, direction, and purpose far greater than anything you could design on your own. Your mind is not just a vessel of random thoughts. It is a sacred meeting ground where heaven seeks to guide you. Discernment sharpens your ears, more obedience strengthens your steps, and alignment secures your destiny. The more you listen, the more you will see that life is not a series of accidents, but a carefully woven journey leading you exactly where you are meant to be. More, and with each whisper you honor, the path grows brighter, the burden grows lighter, and your heart grows stronger. So do not ignore him. More, do not silence what was meant to direct you. Instead, choose today to tune your heart and mind, to listen with humility, and to respond with faith. More, for when you do, you will discover that God has been near all along, guiding, comforting, and preparing you for a life filled with clarity, peace, more, and divine purpose. And the moment you embrace this truth, you will never again walk in confusion. More, because you will know that the voice that matters most is always with you, speaking through the quiet whispers of your mind.